620 KPOJ. Now the Russ Belville Show. Streaming at 620kpoj.com and on the air at AM 620
KPOJ. The free speech zone called America. The weekend home for truly radical progressives. Now, here's your host, Radical Russ.
Hey, welcome to the weekend, everybody. It's the Russ Belville Show, and I'm your host, Radical Russ Belville, joining you again for 5 hours of show crammed into 2 hours worth of listening space. Enjoy the talk with us and get involved by calling us at 888-7-RADICAL. The phone number is 888-7-RADICAL. We got a ton of things to discuss today. Been one of the busiest political weeks of the year. We're, of course, going to be talking about the presidential debate that took place last night at Ole Miss between Obama and McCain. And a little bit of talk about the Sarah Palin interview with Katie Couric. That sure was a lot of fun. And a few other miscellaneous stories that we've collected over this past week as we've been talking about bailouts and the failures on Wall Street and so on. But before we get to all of that, let's go and talk to our very good friend, the man in Washington, D.C., taking your calls, running the boards, the man who'd spit out his chuddy to put a plaster on a moggy scratched lass, but was pipped at the post by a chap who was bent as a two-bob note, leaving him useful as a chocolate teapot, our pal, our favorite immigrant worker, ladies and gentlemen, Stevie Webb.
God bless you, sweet master. That is the greatest introduction I've ever had in my whole life. And you know what else? It's all true as well. Everything you said.
Even the half of it I didn't understand.
Precisely. Even the half of it I didn't understand. You read my mind, right?
You know we're doing it good when I can stump the guy from London with British slang. That's great.
Exactly.
Speaking of London, you just flew back from the Isle, didn't you?
I did. Straight after the show last week, I flew out of the studio, in fact, to the airport and flew straight to London, and I came back yesterday just in time for today's show.
Well, that's fantastic.
So what I missed? Anything interesting?
Yeah, nothing much.
Good.
Been a pretty dull, boring week here in the States.
Relieved.
Hey, I was wondering, since you got to go fly back to Europe and go back to England, what is the take of the British people back there regarding this Obama-McCain campaign, and what do they think of Sarah Palin and all that? I'm just kind of curious.
Well, most people said to me after seeing the occasional bits of opinion poll that you get here on Obama and McCain, they looked at me rather quizzically and said, "You're not going to do it again, are you?"
Not again.
Fool you once, shame on them. Fool you twice, shame on you. Fool you 3 times, you get the president you deserve.
Yeah. That may be part of it. I've been thinking that. I've gone along this theme with some other people before too, in just private conversations. Talking about how can this possibly be so close between McCain and Obama? It just would seem obvious that you'd want to go with Obama.
Exactly.
And, with as much as mendacious as McCain has been on the campaign trail here and talking out both sides of his face, and how could it even be close? And I think it comes down to 2 factors. One factor that is going to be a little bit of racism. In fact, I've got a story coming up here a little bit later in the show about a recent AP poll that shows that 1/3 of white Democrats say they couldn't vote for Barack Obama because he's black. So, yeah, we got to talk a little bit about that. And then also I think it's, back to that, these charges of elitism and that he's not one of us and who's the guy I want to have a beer with and all that. I mean, when did it become a point in American politics that we didn't want the smartest, best educated guy to be president? When did that become an insult that someone is smart, well educated, went to very good schools?
Seriously, it's like, hey, look at the smart guy, you dumbass. You smart, dumb ass. What?
Yeah, he's smart. We don't want him.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't make any sense.
Oh, yeah. And with this Sarah Palin, that's the other thing, too, is seeing the GOP even put Sarah Palin up on the ticket shows you the contempt they have for the American people.
Absolutely.
So much so that a writer for the National Review, I think her name's Catherine or Kathleen, I forget, but Kathleen Parker, I think's her name, very prominent conservative writer, the kind of person that I'd put on the Lunatic Fringe if she had a radio show.
There you go.
She's calling for Palin to step down. She's saying that the conservatives now are starting to revolt because, Sarah Palin, you're just not qualified for this job.
In what respect, Charlie?
Well, I mean, you just don't have the experience or the intelligence.
In what respect, Charlie?
And quit calling me Charlie.
She's always doing that.
I don't know what's up with that. Anyway, before we get to our topics today, we got a whole bunch of stuff to cover. I wanted to bring up one quick little note, a little bit of bragging for my hometown here of Portland, Oregon, up here in the great Pacific Northwest, the Rose City, Stump Town. There was a recent study here that showed, which cities in the United States are most sustainable, and they vote on these sustainable cities by measuring certain criteria, like what are your mass transit options? Do you use sustainable energy? Solar, wind power, hydro, and so on. What kind of water quality do you have? The renewable water? Are you polluting the water? Air quality? How many green buildings do you have? All that kind of stuff. Affordability, and so on. For the fourth year in a row, Portland, Oregon has been named the most sustainable city in America. Following up the list in the top 10, we've got San Francisco, Seattle, Chicago, New York, Boston, Minneapolis, Philadelphia, Oakland, and Baltimore, rounding out the top 10 there. But again, 4 years in a row, Portland, Oregon, most sustainable city. So congratulations to all of us greenies out here in the great Pacific Northwest. Now, as far as the news stories, well, I know that a lot of you are like me. You work a full-time job for a living, so you don't always have the time to catch up on the newspapers or the evening news. So at the top of the Russ Belville Show, I help you catch up with the week's hottest news topics with...
The Week in 90 Seconds.
John W. McCain realizes our economy is in trouble.
The fundamentals of our economy are strong.
So he suspends his campaign to fly into Washington and fix the economic crisis.
There's no need to fear. Underdog is here.
Well, except that he really didn't suspend his campaign.
The economy's in crisis. Enough is enough.
And he messed up the plan to fix the economic crisis.
Clearly yesterday, his position on that discussion yesterday was one that stopped a deal from finalizing.
John W. McCain says the crisis is so severe, we should postpone the presidential debates.
Delay Friday night's debate until we have taken action to address this crisis.
So, with no bailout plan yet in place, McCain participates in the debate with Barack Obama.
I didn't win Miss Congeniality in the United States Senate.
Speaking of Miss Congeniality, Sarah Palin is interviewed by Katie Couric.
As Putin lifts his head and comes into the airspace of the United States of America, where do they go?
Geez, could you give us more examples of how you're even stupider than Bush?
I'll try to find you some and I'll bring them to you.
Come on, Sarah, just one to tide us over?
What the bailout does is help those who are concerned about the health care reform.
And this just in, American Idol singer Clay Aiken is gay.
Surprise, surprise, surprise.
Yeah, surprise, surprise, surprise. What was it? One of the comedians I saw the other day said it's not really coming out of the closet if the door is completely open and the closet's made of glass. Okay, well, congratulations to Clay Aiken.
Feather boas as well. So.
Yeah, congratulations to Clay Aiken, and he's a new father as well. And on a sad note, though, unfortunately, I have to mention this story breaking today on Saturday. Is a famed actor, 10-time Academy Award nominee, and one-time winner of the Oscar, Paul Newman, who starred in Butch and Sundance, Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid, Cool Hand Luke, all those great movies that he starred in. Yeah, Paul Newman has passed away at the age of 83.
Sometimes nothing can be a real cool hand.
Yeah, so we'll be missing Paul Newman here at the show and throughout the country. Fine actor and quite a liberal activist as well. The man supported a lot of liberal causes, was really good, very political active with his wife, Joanne Woodward. And our condolences go out to everyone in the Newman family, Woodward family, and everyone who's hurt by the loss of Paul Newman. This is the Russ Belville Show, the home for truly radical progressives. When we come back, we'll be talking about the big story, the presidential debates. Who won? Who lost? What was your favorite parts of the debates? Give us a call at 888-7-RADICAL. That's 888-772-3422. This is the Russ Belville Show. It's 15 after.
But there's one thing I know.
You're tuned to the Russ Belville Show. AM 620 KPOJ and 620KPOJ.com.
It won't be long till happiness steps up to greet me.
KPOJ.com.
America's R7 secret agent of progressive change.
The name's Belville. Russ Belville.
This is the Russ Belville Show.
Well, the first thing we have to do is get spending under control in Washington. It's completely out of control. It's gone. We have now presided over the largest increase in the size of government since the Great Society. We Republicans came to power to change government, and government changed us.
So vote Republican? This is Russ Belville here. I loved that part of the debate, man. He said, we Republicans came in and we were corrupted by government. So what? Give you a third chance? How many times we have to learn here that when Republicans get in charge, they become corrupt? It seems pretty obvious by the evidence.
Do you really expect me to vote for you, Mr. Republican? No, average American. I expect you to die.
Welcome back to the show. 21 after, and our phone number here is 888-7-RADICAL. We're talking about the debate, the presidential debate last night at Ole Miss. You know, the one that McCain wanted to postpone because he was going to lose. That's why he knew he was going to lose. And furthermore, I think the whole idea of postponing the debate wasn't so much to protect John Keating 5 McCain. I think the idea was to push the debate far enough ahead that it would have canceled the vice presidential debate. That's what's going on there. Absolutely. They have been doing the debate prep with Sarah Pitbull Lipstick Palin out there, the Caribou Barbie, and they are finding out that they are in big, big trouble. Talk about bridge to nowhere. The woman says sentences to nowhere. I mean, it's just an amazing thing here, and to think that she's going to get up on the stage and debate with Joe Biden is just I really can't wait for that one.
What is it exactly that the VP does every day?
Yeah, we better start finding out because you're going to be debating about it in less than a week, coming up this Thursday. But let's go back and talk about this first presidential debate between McCain and Obama. And I just want to give you a few of my, thumbnail sketches here, a couple of my takes on the debate, having watched it last night. And first of all, I got to say, if you're going to watch these presidential debates, get yourself a TiVo. Okay, there's nothing like being able to pause in the middle of these debates and just rant back at the screen. My wife and I have a lot of fun doing that. But here's some things I just kind of noted as I was watching the debate. First of all, did you check out McCain's makeup? Right? This has been kind of a story that's been bubbling under the surface here about McCain's makeup artist. He's got this makeup artist, a woman named Tiffany White, who worked on So You Think You Can Dance, the reality show, and American Idol, right? And her session with John W. McCain here costs $5,500. $5,500 for a makeup artist who worked on American Idol. But Barack Obama is a celebrity. Yeah, okay. Guess we got that one down here.
His lipstick looked lovely.
It was charming.
It really, so understated.
Some other notes from this that I thought was quite interesting. In this debate, where we're talking about mostly the economy, that was supposed to be about foreign policy, but they had to talk about the economy because of the events of this week. So in this debate about the economy, in this debate about a bailout, and the housing crisis going south on us again, John McCain never said the words middle class. Not once in that entire 96-minute debate. Never said the words middle class. Now, comparing some other notes here, Barack Obama said 8 times on 8 separate occasions, Barack Obama said some form of, I agree with John. As in, I agree with John McCain, whatever point that he just made, right? Conciliatory, reaching across the aisle, good spirit, good sportsmanship, that kind of thing. On the other hand, McCain said some form of Barack Obama not understanding or not getting it or naive, something like that, at least 7 times, right? So talk about your contrasting styles there. Obama looked presidential. He looked like he was in command of the facts. He looked like he had his arguments well rehearsed and understandable. And from a style point of view, came off looking presidential. Meanwhile, John W. McCain over there looked like the angry old man, sputtering and coughing, and it was just about what I had predicted, just about what I had anticipated to happen in this debate. And a lot of people out there, a lot of pundits are noticing now how John McCain never even looked at Barack Obama, couldn't even meet his gaze, couldn't meet his eyes. And one of the blogs I was reading said, yeah, that's because McCain knew that every time he looked at Obama, he was looking at the next president. So yeah, maybe that's it, and trying to control his anger, so to speak. A couple other notes here. Wanted to note, I thought it was quite fascinating that John McCain admits that we have tortured people. This kind of slipped by. Keith Olbermann caught it, and a couple others caught it. But you notice that part where McCain got involved, and he started saying, "Never, ever again will the United States torture anybody," or something like that, right? Well, never again. So we have, right?
Have you stopped beating your wife?
Exactly. So we have tortured people. Nice for John McCain to admit that. And this is one point, this torture point, where I do have to slap around Barack Obama a little bit. Now, I don't know. Maybe Obama's been coached to, be nice to John McCain. Don't go for the zingers. Don't come off as sarcastic or smarmy or elitist or whatever they want to, paint him as. So I think Obama was pulling his punches a little bit. And I'd like to see in the next couple debates for him to go for the jugular a little bit more. And, he did this in a couple. He did this in a couple bites. There was that one sound bite where John McCain starts talking about how Barack said he would go into Pakistan and attack. If Osama bin Laden was in Pakistan, he'd go across the border and attack, and how Obama was being reckless by saying that you can't say reckless things like that. And turned on a dime, Barack Obama turned on a dime and said, "You're the guy who was talking about wiping North Korea off the map and singing about bombing Iran." Zowie! Pow! That's it. That's perfect. That is a great soundbite. Perfectly timed, perfectly done.
Oh, snap!
Exactly. So that's exactly what we need more of from Barack Obama, because that's the things that people remember. But there were so many others that he left just sitting there, this low-hanging fruit. Now, he did one other good one. Let me get the other good one in here, is when McCain went to the well. You know how McCain goes to the well of being a POW and being a soldier and, standing up for the troops and support the troops and blah, blah, blah. You know McCain's story, right? So McCain goes to the well, goes to the story on that, I have a bracelet from a soldier who told me, just let us win, just let us win. And the perfect comeback from Obama saying, hey, John, I got a bracelet too. Beautiful. Pow. Just exactly what we needed as far as a comeback here. And it should also be pointed out that McCain talking about, the troops tell me that just let us win, just let us win. The troops right now are skewing 6-1 in Obama's favor. Yeah. So I think the troops know what they want, and what they don't want, John McCain, is you. But these other opportunities that were left hanging on the vine that he could have gone for, when McCain started talking about the torture part and talking about opposing torture, Barack Obama turned back to him and said something along the lines, I admire what John McCain's done in trying to fight torture. No, he hasn't. John McCain supported the bill that would allow the CIA to continue the torture of drowning boarding of drowning people. So McCain supported
enhanced
torture.
Interrogation.
Oh, right. Enhanced interrogation, right. John McCain supported that. You should have knocked that one out of the park there, Barack. You missed one on that one. And when he started talking about his support for veterans, I support the veterans, I help the veterans, not a word about McCain not even showing up, opposing, but not even showing up to vote on the Webb GI Bill, on the Senator Webb's GI Bill that would give to our Iraq veterans the same kind of benefits that the GI Bill gave to the World War II generation, McCain. Support the troops. Yeah. But, don't vote for the troops. Just say you support them. Obama just left that sitting, didn't go for it. And one last one here. Whenever John McCain talks about this financial bailout, and he talked about we're suffering the biggest crisis in our financial history, he needs to remind him about the second biggest crisis, the Keating 5 scandal that John McCain was smack dab in the center of. Start bringing up Keating 5. I'm Radical Russ. Coming up here on the next part of the hour, we're taking your calls at 888-7-RADICAL. What did you think about the debates? Let's get it out there. Let's talk about it. 888-7-RADICAL, 29 after the hour.
touch that dial. We're right back to Radical Russ in just a few minutes. Hey, does anybody really have a dial anymore? You're listening to the Russ Belville Show.
And 620 KPOJ.com.
Slowly, for conservatives.
Welcome back to the show, 35 after the hour. Let's turn things over to the good and wise people of North America and hear your voices. Stand up together and fight the power. Let our leaders know how we feel. That's right. It's time to let the people speak. Spread your words all across the North American continent by dialing in to 888-7-RADICAL, 888-772-3422. We're talking about the debate, the bailout, Sarah Palin, and whatever else you want to get off your chest. So 888-7-RADICAL if you want to get involved in the conversation. What I'd like to do at this point is to go back through this debate just a little bit and take a look at some of the lies of John W. McCain. That's right. A night full of lies, 96 minutes worth. We'll see how many we can get in here during this segment. Also want to remind you, coming up in the next segment, our Lunatic Fringe Awards, and in the top of the next hour, we'll talk about the big bailout plan, $1 trillion of taxpayer money. We'll get right to that. All right, let's look at this debate here. As we first noticed at the beginning of the debate, the first thing I noticed is Barack Obama came in with a flag pin on his lapel, and John W. McCain did not. Notice that flag pin thing just kind of went away all of a sudden. Now that's not a big deal for the right wing. Interesting. At about 11 minutes into the debate, John McCain references the greatest fiscal crisis of our time. Let's not forget the second greatest fiscal crisis, the savings and loan fiasco, the Keating Five, when John W. McCain was trying to pressure federal regulators to go easy on his friend Charles Keating, who was making off with billions of dollars in illegal loans, et cetera, et cetera. Why is the media, the traditional media, I should say, why is the media not bringing up Keating Five? How many times have you heard Keating Five in the past 2 weeks as we've been talking about this bailout and these failures of all these banks? I mean, Washington Mutual just failed. And nobody can think 20 years ago to bring up the most appropriate historical anecdote to match what's going on today. No one will bother to bring it up. I do not understand what the media is afraid of in bringing up the Keating Five scandal. Now, about 14 minutes into the debate, McCain said, well, I warned everyone about the problems in the financial markets. I told everyone that there was going to be a problem with the financial markets, except the fact of a week or two ago when he said he did not anticipate the problems with the financial markets. Lies, yeah. Speaking of lies, about 16 minutes into it, McCain starts talking about how great America is and points out how the United States is still the greatest exporter in the world. Unfortunately, yeah, that's a lie too. That's Germany. Germany is the greatest exporter in the world, according to the statistics. Taking a look at more lies here from McCain. It's not really a lie, but he's talking about the earmarks, remember, and how there's so much wasteful spending, and we've got to cut wasteful government spending so we can get Wall Street under control. What? We have to cut government spending so Wall Street. Anyway, never mind. Let's not wrap our head around that. He says he mocks spending $3 million in earmark subsidies. Well, you remember this quote.
We spent $3 million to study the DNA of bears in Montana.
But he forgets that we spent a whole lot of money for Alaska to study the DNA of harbor seals, and that was a earmark that his running mate Caribou Barbie was all for. So hard to. What's the difference between Alaskan bears DNA and Montana bears DNA and Alaskan seal DNA? Montana has a Democratic governor and Alaska has a Republican governor. Could that be it? Also, want to talk about McCain pointing out how, the American worker is the most productive worker. We're more productive than we've ever been before. And that's absolutely true. The average employee productivity since November of 2001 has risen by more than 15%. So that is true. However, The average wage for the typical American worker has only gone up 1%. So for a 1% raise, after inflation, for a 1% raise, we've given the workforce 15% more productivity. And for the first time in American history, this may be the first time ever, when the typical American working household goes through an economic expansion without any increase in income. Yeah, because that expansion's all going to the top. It's all going to the top 1%. And we've all figured it out now. Took us a few years, but we figured it out. John McCain also liked to make a point about the United States having the second highest corporate tax rate in the world. And Obama did a great job of defanging this by pointing out that with all the loopholes, we effectively have a tax rate that is similar to the world's leading economies. So we're not taxing anyone any more than Germany or England or any of these guys in general here, once you factor in all the loopholes that these guys get to go through. And furthermore, 2/3 of American corporations pay no taxes at all. Zero. No taxes. So, highest corporate tax rate. Sure. About 32 minutes into the debate, McCain made a big point about how he unequivocally is against ethanol subsidies. Unequivocally does not support ethanol subsidies. Yeah. But in 2006, he said, quote, I support ethanol, and I think it is a vital alternative energy source, not only because of our dependency on foreign oil, but its greenhouse gas reduction effects, end quote. Big point there. I support ethanol. So that's not quite unequivocally. Let's see. What else we got here? McCain in the debate, as we get a little farther in here, likes to point out that the surge worked. Oh, the surge, it worked. And Barack Obama didn't think the surge would work. And the surge worked. Well, if you want to define the surge working as a decrease in violence in Baghdad, then yes, the surge did work. However, the most recent research on this, I mentioned this last week, they took satellite photos of what was happening as far as the movement of people within Baghdad. And what they had in the past were all these mixed neighborhoods where Sunnis and Shias lived in the same neighborhood and hated each other's guts. And there was lots of violence and lots of fighting. So what had happened before the surge started was a whole bunch of ethnic cleansing. They basically, the Shias were pushing the Sunnis out of their neighborhoods, and the Sunnis were pushing the Shias out of their neighborhoods. And what do you know? When everybody's living in a neighborhood with nobody but people they like, the violence went down. So it didn't have a whole lot to do with the surge. It had a whole lot to do with the ethnic cleansing and the separation, the apartheid of the Sunnis from the Shias in the city of Baghdad. That's really what it had to do with. But anyway, the surge worked. But of course, remember the whole point of the surge was to create a possibility of Iraq's leaders coming to some political reconciliation and being able to stand up so we could stand down. And that hasn't happened either. Now, talking furthermore about whether or not the surge would succeed, he's been saying all this time that, I knew the surge would succeed, and Barack Obama said that, it wouldn't, and Barack Obama doubted it, but I knew the surge would be fine. I knew it would work. Well, we go back to the record, Mr. McCain, because, we have the Google. And back in January of 2007, regarding the surge, John McCain said, quote, I am concerned about it, whether it is sufficient numbers or not. Also, quote, I am very nervous about this new strategy. I am very doubtful that we don't have enough troops. I don't know if the Maliki government will be strong enough, end quote. So, McCain, you had some doubts about the surge, too. So it's kind of a big gaffe there. Oh, and speaking of big gaffes, this was a good one here when he talked about Pakistan. And how Pakistan was a failed state until Musharraf got there. Yeah. Well, when Musharraf launched his coup in 1999, they had a prime minister in Pakistan. His name was Nawaz Sharif. And Sharif was the prime minister. The country was running. Nobody considered Pakistan a failed state when Musharraf led the military coup in 1999. One more. Let me get one more debate falsehood out of this huge list here. He was talking about meeting with Ahmadinejad. That is when McCain can say Ahmadinejad. And said that, well, we can't meet with Ahmadinejad because that would somehow validate the anti-Israel statements of Ahmadinejad, right? You can't go meet with this guy because he says Israel should be destroyed and wiped off the face of the earth. Well, that's interesting because McCain met with the al-Maliki there, and Maliki has said some things about not liking the Iranians. So does that mean that McCain, when he met with al-Maliki, that he endorses al-Maliki's anti-Israel views? I mean, if that's the way it works, if you meet with someone, you completely agree with everything they believe, right? Right. This is the Russ Belville Show, the home for truly radical progressives. It's 45 after the hour. Coming back after this break, we're going to get to our Lunatic Fringe. You got to stay tuned for this one. I have got some stuff said by Bill O'Reilly you will not believe. Stay tuned. Liar!
You're tuned to the Russ Belville Show. AM 620 KPOJ and 620KPOJ.com. KPOJ and 620KPOJ.com.
We're still waiting for Bill O'Reilly's response to our loofah joust and falafel off. This is the Russ Belville Show.
Hey, welcome back, everyone. 50 after the hour.
The lunatic is on the grass.
Now it's time for our weekly roundup of the right wing's altered reality.
The lunatic is on the grass.
From the Guano Loco neocon chicken hawks to the hypocritical American Taliban and the cable news punditocracy, the Russ Belville Show presents
Got to keep the loonies on the path.
the Lunatic Fringe Award, an award dedicated to the politician, pundit, or preacher who said the most bizarre, ignorant, or hateful quote of the week. Starting off our Lunatic Fringe for today, we've got an old favorite, our friend Bill O'Reilly, Faloofa Boy, Falafel Man, whatever you want to call him. And Stevie, this may be the most shocking thing I have ever played from Bill O'Reilly. So you're ready?
Really?
Are you ready for this? Are you ready?
Hang on a second.
Okay, batten down the hatches.
That's the sound of me grasping my arms.
Okay, this will freak you out. So
Okay.
here we go.
Right.
This is Bill O'Reilly talking about the bailout.
And all of these ideologues, it gets me angry. I do talk radio, and most talk radio is conservative-dominated. Ideologues, Kool-Aid drinking idiots. Idiots. Screaming at you, this is socialism, this is that. It's Clinton's fault. It's Clinton's fault? It's Clinton's fault? Clinton hasn't been in office in 8 years. It's Bush's fault. It happened on Bush's watch. You know, Bush could have prevented this. But let's get back to this talk radio stuff. These idiots, I mean, they're misleading you. They're lying to you. They're rich, these guys. Big cigars, all of that. Yeah, oh yeah, my private jet. And they're saying, oh no, no bailout. No way. Hey, you're gonna get it, not them. Walk away from these liars, these right-wing liars. Walk away from them. They're not looking out for you.
And I don't even know what to say about that. Bill O'Reilly is calling his co-workers, his compatriots on the right-wing radio dial, idiots, ideologues, Kool-Aid drinking idiots, liars, liars.
What just happened?
I don't know. I think Bill's trying to psych us out because he knows the falafel off is coming. I think he's trying to psych us out.
That's what it is.
No, I'll tell you what it is Bill O'Reilly knows who's going to win this election, and he's trying to have it both ways. He's trying to back away from being a Bush cheerleader for these past 8 years and trying to position himself as, I'm just one of the regular guys. I stand up for the people, so that when Barack Obama gets elected, he doesn't lose most of his audience. I'm afraid.
Which way the wind turns.
Yeah, it's not going to work, Bill. We all know who you are and what you stand for. All right, so let me get to these other clips here. These next three kind of follow a theme about Barack Obama and Barack Obama's race, okay? They're always, trying to inject race into this debate. First, we start with Chris Matthews on the post-debate coverage on MSNBC, talking to African-American reporter Gene Robinson from the Washington Post and asking about how Barack Obama was so unethnic.
Gene, did it surprise you that he was so unethnic tonight? that he never once talked about the condition of African Americans in this country, never once talked about poor people, never once mentioned poor people, never once talked about the underclass, the people that don't get a break generation after generation. Not once admitted where he came from and what he struggled for as a community organizer, ever once.
So somehow, if you talk about poor people and being a community organizer, that's ethnic, right? Because white folks aren't poor.
What? Is unethnic a word? I think he just made that up.
I think he just made it up.
Did you notice how he didn't say for shizzle either?
Exactly. Yeah, MFer, I want more iced tea.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, my God. So that's Chris Matthews with one of those kind of questions. But I want to go to this Chris Baker guy. We did a clip of his, I think it was last week or a couple weeks ago. This guy up in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
One of these minor leaguers, on the AAA squad down in Minneapolis. Here's his take on the race issue and Barack Obama.
We're going to have this race discussion once again, because I'm getting really sick of being told that if I disagree with Barack Obama, the Nikolai Carpathia candidate, that I'm a racist. But it just keeps popping up everywhere you go. So we'll get into that. We're going to have to get into another race discussion, because now more news today about apparently all you white honky crackers out there will not be voting for Barack Obama because you hate black people.
Yes. Speaking as a white honky cracker, yeah, white honky crackers.
Yes, I imagine the white honky crackers won't be voting for the black person.
Speaking as a white honky cracker, I'd like to apologize to all of my African American family for that characterization. That's ridiculous what he's talking about here. First of all, one thing that might have slipped past you, because this is code. A lot of these right wingers talk in code to the religious right. He says, if I disagree with Barack Obama, the Nikolai Carpathia candidate. Did that slip past you? The Nikolai Carpathia candidate? If you haven't read, there's a series of books called the Left Behind series by Tim LaHaye. It's all about the rapture coming. And Nikolai Carpathia in this novel series is the Antichrist. So basically Chris Baker saying Barack Obama, the Antichrist candidate. Yeah, exactly. But what he's referring to, let me get this out of the way. This is an AP Yahoo News poll that came out that said that 1/3 of white Democrats harbor negative views toward blacks, many calling them lazy, violent, or responsible for their own troubles. 40% of all white Americans hold at least a partly negative view toward blacks. That includes many Democrats and independents. The poll wasn't saying that 1/3 of white Democrats wouldn't vote for Barack Obama. The poll was 1/3 of white Democrats harbor negative feelings, stereotyped feelings toward African Americans. And considering the way that African Americans are portrayed in our media, when the only time you see them on the news is getting busted on cops or something like that, it's hardly a surprise that after the media's, pounded in this stereotype, that some people still believe it. But the right-wing radio people are feeding that. That's the point. And one last one here. Rush Limbaugh is bringing up the race issue.
There's these polls on how 1/3 of blue-collar white Democrats won't vote for Obama because he's black. And by he's not black, he has not one shred of African-American blood. He doesn't have any African. That's why they asked whether he was authentic, whether he's down for the struggle. He's Arab. He's from Africa. He's from Arab parts of Africa. He's not. His father was. He's not African-American. The last thing that he is African-American.
Yeah, so that's Rush Limbaugh explaining how Barack Obama's not African-American, he's Arab-American, Arab African-American, and Monica Crowley tried to make this point a week ago as well. I bet when Barack Obama's out in the streets of New York trying to hail a cab, I bet the cab drivers driving by go, I'm not going to pick up that black guy. Oh, wait, he's Arab. I'll pick him up. Yeah, I'll bet that when he was going through school and kids were calling him all sorts of terrible racial epithetic names, that he probably turned to him and said, no, that's not accurate. That N-word's not accurate. I'm actually Arab. Come on. This is the most ridiculous talking point I've heard from the right yet. There is no proof whatsoever of what they're saying here about Barack Obama's genealogy. And furthermore, he's more than just African American. He's also white, too. Let's not forget about that. So there's my little three-piece there from the right wing capitalizing on this AP poll of 1/3 of white Democrats. One last thing, our winner today, Lee Rogers from KSFO.
I believe that the reason a bunch of puckered butt Democrat women hate Sarah Palin is because her idea of choice was choosing not to have an abortion. You think that enters into it?
So Lee Rogers, for demonstrating typical Republican sexism and the ludicrous idea we hate Sarah Palin because she chose to have a baby, you're the winner of this week's Radical Russ, 58 after the hour. We'll be right back.
I know you're out there.
Welcome to AM 620 KPOJ. Now the Russ Belville Show. Streaming at 620kpoj.com and on the air at AM 620
from the free speech
KPOJ.
zone called America. The weekend home for truly radical progressives. Now, here's your host, Radical Russ.
Hey everyone, welcome to Hour 2 of the Russ Belville Show. Glad to have you here. Want to remind you about our website, RadicalRuss.com. Check it out. You'll get all my commentary and some of the latest hilarious YouTube videos that are out there regarding John McCain and Sarah Palin. Also, we've got exclusive cartoons from Keith Tucker that you'll want to check out. Keith Tucker from the What Now cartoon series. Always a new cartoon every week that just perfectly encapsulates what's going on in our political world here. We're coming to you live here from the most sustainable city in the United States, Portland, Oregon, the Rose City, Stumptown. Glad to have you here. Our phone number is 888-7-RADICAL. If you want to get involved in the conversation, it's 888-772-3422. And, of course, joining us again from across the continent over there in Washington, D.C., taking your calls. And I said it before, I'll say it again. He's a man who'd spit out his chuddy to put a plaster on a moggy scratched glass, but was pipped at the post by a chap who was bent as a 2-bob note, leaving as useful as a chocolate teapot. Our pal, our favorite immigrant worker, Stevie Webb.
You know, I did, I was, and it did, and what did you say?
Well, you'd spit out your chuddy. Now, chuddy, that's chewing gum.
Yes, I would spit it
to
out.
put a plaster. Now, plaster, that's like a Band-Aid.
Yes.
On a moggy scratched glass. That's a girl who's been scratched by a cat. A cat is a moggy.
Yeah.
But you were pipped at the post.
I was.
You know, that you were beaten at the last minute by a chap, a dude.
Yes, indeed.
Who was bent as a 2-bob note.
Yes,
you know,
he was.
Like queer as a $3 bill. Like weird, right? Leaving him as useful as a chocolate teapot, which is like, as useless as something on a boar or, wherever you want to put it. So there's your translation for your British English slang for the day.
Tune in next week for more from Radical Russ Belville's English American Dictionary.
Thank you very much. Hey, one other note I forgot to mention at the top of the hour. Something else that happened this last week happened right after I got off the air, and that is my alma mater, the mighty WAC champions Boise State University Broncos, marching into Autzen Stadium just 2 hours south of me and defeating the Pac-10 Oregon Ducks, just wiping them out on their own home field. So congratulations to my Broncos for that. Yay! All right, so let me get to some of the other stuff that we want to talk about here.
Was that good?
It was great. It was a beautiful
I thought you were still doing more slang there. Is that what?
No. no,
But who did the what to the... Oh.
Yeah, the Broncos beat the Ducks.
I'm sorry, I'm not from around here.
Yeah, football with helmets and stuff.
Oh, courier football.
Right, courier football, yeah. The other thing I noticed about the debates that I thought was quite fun is when the debate finished, they go to all the talking heads and the people, the surrogates trying to make a point on the debate. And Joe Biden was everywhere. I caught him on MSNBC, but he appeared on a lot of the shows, and Joe Biden was talking about the debate and defending Barack Obama and attacking John McCain. And so I flipped around channels trying to find Sarah Palin, his counterpart. I wanted to find, what Sarah Palin's opinion of the debate was. And here's what I found on Sarah Palin talking about the debate last night. Yeah, that's exactly it. Nothing. No Sarah Palin to be found. Do you think it might have something to do with this?
You've cited Alaska's proximity to Russia as part of your foreign policy experience. What did you mean by that?
That Alaska has a very narrow maritime border between a foreign country, Russia, and on our other side, the land boundary that we have with Canada. It's funny that a comment like that was kind of made to, I don't know, reporters. Yeah, mocked, I guess that's the word, yeah.
Well, explain to me why that enhances your foreign policy credentials.
Well, it certainly does, because Our next door neighbors are foreign countries. They're in the state that I am the executive of. And
have you ever been involved with any negotiations, for example, with the Russians?
We have trade missions back and forth. We do. It's very important when you consider even national security issues with Russia, as Putin rears his head and comes into the airspace of the United States of America. Where do they go?
Putin rears his ugly head.
I personally believe that U.S. Americans are unable to do so.
Yeah, you get the point, right? Yeah, that could be why they're keeping Sarah Palin under wraps here, is they've realized they've made a huge misjudgment here. A huge error. It's just going to be amazing having Sarah Palin out there.
And I can see Russia from my house.
And let me point something out about that, too, right? When Tina Fey came out and did that Sarah Palin impersonation to open up the season of Saturday Night Live, I had written it in my blog and said, how funny this was and how it was going to be like Chevy Chase doing Gerald Ford with the whole tumbling, bumbling Gerald Ford, and how this would be a huge moment that would cause the public opinion of Sarah Palin to go down like it did for Gerald Ford. And one of my readers of my blog, a conservative, said, "Oh yeah, you liberals, if you're depending on Saturday Night Live to win this election, oh boy, you got some trouble coming." I'd like to note that Sarah Palin's favorables have dropped 21 points since that Tina Fey skit. So once again, Radical Russ is right. Ha ha. Yeah. All right. Well, let's get to the stories in the news today. Neocon regressives like to say that we liberals hate America first. I like to say we liberals love America most. That's why we're so disappointed in how badly regressives trash her reputation and treat her people. So today we help our leaders focus on the plight of the little guy by taking our look at... All right, so for Living in America Today, I want to talk about this bailout plan that they're bandying about on Capitol Hill. They're talking about $700 billion of our money, your money, my money, and using that money, giving it away to the Wall Street fat cats who caused the problem in the first place with just little or no oversight. And, I wanted to bring up something I had mentioned last week about this. We were talking about this bailout, and, $700 billion is the number they're poking around right now. And by the way, that $700 billion number isn't really related to anything. It isn't. It's not like they went down and they got to a computer and they said, okay, well, if we calculate how many mortgages, and we take the mortgages and carry the 3, and then we add all the blah, blah, blah. No.
You know where they actually got the figure from? Dr. Evil.
Oh, Dr. Evil. I was going to say...
$700 billion.
Exactly. No, where they got it was from the department, or right out of their ass is where they got it. It's been admitted... It has been admitted now by one of their folks out there that we just picked a number that we thought would be big enough. $700 billion. But when you do the math, actually, when you talk about the bailouts we've already done, like AIG and some of these other guys, Bear Stearns and so on, it's going to add up to about $1 trillion. Now, last week, I tried to give you an idea of what $1 trillion was. And I said if you took $1 trillion in dollar bills and counted a dollar bill every second, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, it would take you 37,000 days to count it. I was wrong. And I want to admit it. I want to fess up. Whenever I'm wrong on this show, I will fess up to it. I was wrong. It's not 37,000 days. 37,000 years to count to 1 trillion at $1 a second. 37,000 years. But that's still kind of hard to wrap your head around because, 37,000 years is a long time. So let me put it to you this way, what $1 trillion of taxpayer money is. Imagine that you had a warehouse, and this warehouse was full of $100 bills. Not dollar bills, $100 bills, right? Franklin's. $100 bills, $1 trillion worth of $100 bills would be 398,800 cubic feet of $100 bills. In other words, you would have to have a 4-story warehouse, 100-foot square, piled to the ceiling with $100 bills to equal $1 trillion, right? 100 by 100 by 4 stories tall, filled with $100 bills to be $1 trillion. The weight of $1 trillion in $100 bills would be 10,200 tons. The weight of $1 trillion in $100 bills is about the weight of a small battleship. Now, if you were going to count that money, if you're going to count those $100 bills, let's say this time you get a team of 100 people. You got 100 people go to that warehouse counting $100 bills at the rate of 1 per second for a full 8-hour shift, 5 days a week, with 2 weeks of vacation per year, right? 100 people with a full-time job of doing nothing but counting a $100 bill every second. It will take that team 13 years, 44 weeks, 2 days, 1 hour, and 46 minutes and 40 seconds to count to 1 trillion. 100 people counting $100 every second. It's going to take them 13 years. So we are actually talking about some real money here, folks. $1 trillion. I'd like to know what you think about this bailout. Do we really need to bail out these Wall Street fat cats, these guys that were speculating and putting all these money into these derivatives and these credit swaps, and they didn't even know how much the stuff would cost? Have they gotten too big to fail? We have to bail them out, or else Main Street's going to suffer? How about some trickle-up economics? Let's take that $1 trillion and give it to everybody who makes less than $250,000 a year. Just give it. The money they spend into our economy could fix this problem. What do you think about it? Phone number here is 888-7-RADICAL. That's 888-772-3422. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to take a look under the radar. Stick with us. This is the Russ Belville Show.
You're tuned to the Russ Belville Show. AM 620 KPOJ and 620KPOJ.com.
This is the Russ Belville Show. Not some pot legalizing, tax hiking, government expanding, latte drinking, sushi eating, Volvo driving, New York Times reading, body piercing, Hollywood loving, left wing freak show. He drives a Jeep.
Welcome back to the show. 20 after the hour. That means it's time for our Stoner News Minute. Yes, in our Stoner News Minute today, I want to tell you the story real quick here about Washington State. You know, Washington State's one of these states with a medical marijuana law. Recently, a judge in Kitsap County decided that a Washington medical marijuana patient whose doctor had recommended marijuana for the treatment of chronic pain due to a lower back injury, a judge recently decided that wasn't the case, and the patient would be doing just fine if he took conventional opioid medications. So, in other words, in Washington State now, a judge can overrule your doctor. A judge who goes to law school now has medical credentials, and that's your Stoner News Minute. Now, let me get back to the story here that we were talking about before, and that is our big bailout. We're talking about this $700 billion bailout, and if you want to make your opinion known, phone number here is 888-7-RADICAL. And, they're talking about this bailout and how terrible the economic crisis is. But there's a few people for whom this economic crisis is not so bad at all, and that would be the CEOs of these companies that we're bailing out. Let me give you a quick little rundown on how bad the economy is for them. Merrill Lynch, the big company that went under and got bought out here or propped up, the CEOs of Merrill Lynch, the CEO O'Neill walked away with $161 million, and the CEO who worked for 9 months, Tain, he walked away with $200 million. Citibank, $40 million for Chuck Prince. Bear Stearns, James Cain walked away with $61 million. Countrywide, the mortgage lender, Angelo Mozilo walked away with $110 million. AIG, the big AIG insurance bailout, we're bailing those guys out. Maurice Greenberg sold $1 billion worth of his stock right after the bailout, made $1 billion. Lehman Brothers, $2.5 billion was in their bonus fund for all of their executive managers. Richard Fuld, the CEO of Lehman Brothers, one of those guys, walked away with $71 million. The CEO of Morgan Stanley, John Mack, walked away with $17 million. Lloyd Blankfein, CEO of Goldman Sachs, walked away with $43 million. Martin Sullivan, CEO of AIG, $15 million. Daniel Mudd, CEO of Fannie Mae, $8 million. And Richard Siren, the CEO of Freddie Mac, $5.5 million. That's right. You can run a company completely into the ground and still walk away with $5, $10, $15, $20, up to $71 million for ruining your company. And our latest one, Washington Mutual, the big bank that just went out, they had just recently hired a CEO. He worked an entire 3 weeks, and for his 3 weeks of work, $18 million. 3 weeks of work, $18 million. The total of all those numbers that I just read off to you comes up to $4.25 billion worth of money, worth of executive compensation going out to these CEOs after they wreck their companies, after they speculate and get involved in risky derivatives they had no business doing, after John W. McCain, John Keating 5 McCain, and his buddy Phil Graham passed numerous bills to gut the regulations that would have had some oversight over these guys. And now they have the temerity, they have the elephantine testicles, they have the huevos rancheros to come to the American people who are struggling, who are facing health care costs that are through the roof, who are facing energy costs that are through the roof, and say, hey, give us $700 billion. And furthermore, when they first asked for the $700 billion, Paulson had that Section 8 part of the bill that said, quote, decision by the Secretary pursuant to the authority of this act are non-reviewable and committed to agency discretion and may not be reviewed by any court of law or any administrative agency. So, give us $700 billion taxpayer dollars. Don't ask any questions. We know what we're doing. We'll spend it any damn way we please. That's what they want to pull over on the American people. Meanwhile, John W. McCain's campaign manager, Rick Davis, he got $2 million of that Fannie Mae Freddie Mac money. That's right. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac had hired Rick Davis as a lobbyist to lobby John McCain to help them block stricter government regulations. The very reason we're in this problem. His campaign manager got $2 million of that money. Now, the American people, of course, are struggling under the weight of this economy. Jobless claims have increased 32,000 to 493,000 for the third week of September. It was the highest number of weekly claims since September of 2001. What happened in September of 01? Oh, yeah. Housing starts tumbled 11.5% in August, the slowest pace in 17 years. Healthcare premiums increased to $12,680 for a family of 4, and single coverage is now $4,700. The percentage of workers involved in high deductible insurance jumped from 18% from 12%. So, gone up by 50%. More people are paying more money for less health care in this country. And then, John Keating 5 McCain's solution to this is to start taxing those benefits that the employers give you. Yeah, you think they're going to want to keep insuring you when there's no tax deduction for these benefits that they're giving out to you? And this $700 billion, I'm still not convinced that we need to be giving them all that much money all at once. What's wrong with an installment plan? Can you divide it up into maybe 3-4 payments? You know, pay them $200 billion now, see how things go, have a couple committee meetings, maybe a congressional hearing, see how it's going. And if they need more money, maybe we give them a little more money later. Do you really think we got to give them $700 billion blank check right now? I'm no economist. I've never dealt with any financial transaction that ever had 2 commas in it, okay? I've never even dealt with any financial transactions that have been above 5 digits. So I'm not going to claim to be an expert on this high-level macroeconomics, but I am an expert in just being an average human being here who knows when he's getting hustled. I've bought used cars before. I've dealt with shysters before. And the number one thing the shyster tries to do when he's trying to pull a fast one on you is say that it's an absolute emergency. You got to buy now. You can't wait. You got to buy now. Got to do it right now. Or there'll be terrible things. You're going to miss out. You're going to miss out on a deal. You got to buy it right now. Anytime anyone's selling you something tells you that, it's time to walk away. And I'm glad to see that the American people are walking away from this and asking for a little more oversight and a little more consideration of this $700 billion bill. Now, thinking about some of the things that $700 billion might help us with here in this country. In America, if we took $700 billion, we could provide health care for every American. Every American could have private health insurance and an automated health information system. And that would only cost $150 billion. Only $150 billion, not even $700 billion. So no more do I want to hear the excuse from Washington and, we can't have that. It would cost too much. We can't have health care. It costs too much. We can't do Head Start for kids. That would cost too much. We can't support our veterans. That would cost too much. I'm not buying it, folks. If we can come up with $700 billion for Wall Street, we can come up with $700 billion for Main Street. I'm Radical Russ. This is the Russ Belville Show. We're taking your calls at 888-7-RADICAL if you want to get involved in the conversation, or you can send me an email, radicalruss@gmail.com. We'll be right back.
Touch that dial. We're right back to Radical Russ in just a few minutes. Hey, does anybody really have the dial anymore? You're listening to the Russ Belville Show.
KPOJ and 620KPOJ.com.
Radical Russ, your red state refugee. This is the Russ Belville Show.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. 35 after the hour. Phone number here is 888-7-RADICAL. Email address is radicalruss@gmail.com. Every week here at the Russ Belville Show, we sift through headlines to find the stories buried in the back pages or ignored on the evening news. Stories our citizens and our leaders need to hear. In this segment, we go under the radar. So with the news of the financial bailout, the big economic crisis on Wall Street, and the debates between McCain and Obama, and the Katie Couric interview with Sarah Palin, a lot of stories have gotten shuffled under the radar here, and I just want to kind of address a few of them here. First of all, a few weeks back we had talked about the evidence that had shown that there was top-level meetings at the White House to discuss torture, to discuss the techniques we would use on captured al-Qaeda operatives at Guantanamo Bay. And John McCain admitted it yesterday in the debate when he said, "We'll never torture again," which, goes to say that, yes, we have tortured. Well, this just came out in the New York Times, hasn't gotten a lot of play, but this is a follow-up. New York Times says that senior White House officials played a central role in deliberations in the spring of 2002 about whether the CIA could legally use harsh interrogation techniques while questioning Abu Zubaydah, the al-Qaeda operative. During the meetings, they discussed specific interrogation methods. The meetings were led by Condoleezza Rice, who was National Security Advisor at the time, Defense Secretary Don Rumsfeld at the time, and Attorney General John Ashcroft, as well as other top administration officials. Now, remember, these documents are showing that they were discussing this in the spring of 2002, which was before the written legal opinions in August 2002 that authorized all this enhanced interrogation techniques. So they didn't even bother to wait to get the legal cover from their shyster lawyers, John Yoo and Bybee and these guys that were talking about, oh, well, if it doesn't feel like death or organ failure, it's not really torture, which of course by that measure means that John W. McCain was never tortured in Vietnam. But now they're showing that even before, months before they had come up with this legal CYA, Condoleezza Rice, Don Rumsfeld, John Ashcroft were all discussing torturing people. So that is the stain on the American White House that we've got to do something this November to cure. Speaking of this November, too, caught an interesting little quip from Tina Fey. They had caught up with Tina Fey and were asking her about playing Sarah Palin on Saturday Night Live, and she says, well, it's a real fun job, but I'm really hoping it's an impersonation I won't have to do after November 5th. So let's do what we can to help out Tina Fey in that respect. Now, a couple of other little stories that are floating around the news wires here that, again, have flown in under the radar during this crazy week. I talked about this on the show, too, a while ago in Nebraska. Now, you understand that throughout the United States, states now have come up with these laws that are called safe haven laws. And what they're for is, we had those cases of young girls who would get pregnant and have a baby and then just abandon the baby. They'd leave it in a dumpster or, just abandon it somewhere. And so states responded by coming up with these safe haven laws that just said basically no questions asked. If you drop off your infant baby at like a fire station or a hospital or whatever, no questions asked, we'll take care of the baby. We'll make sure it gets adopted or taken to foster care or whatever, but we'll make sure the baby's taken care of. Don't kill your babies. Don't abandon your babies. Just take them to a fire station, right? So most states have this type of law. Nebraska did not have this kind of law, and so they went and put one together. They put together this law to, if the child was abandoned, that the state would find a way to take care of it, right? But the Nebraska law has an interesting loophole in that it doesn't protect just infants. It protects children, right? They put an amendment on here that said you could abandon your children. And they never bothered to actually define in the law what children meant. So a lot of people are saying, well, this just means anybody under the age of 19, because in Nebraska, 19 is your age of consent thing, or not age of consent, age of majority, excuse me. Or in other decisions, they've said it could go as high as age 14. But regardless, what they're saying here is this law has a loophole so that the parents can just abandon their kids, right? They don't have to be just newborn infants. And so we'd warned about this a couple weeks ago or a few weeks ago on the show. Well, it turns out it's happened. According to the Associated Press, 9 children were left in a hospital by their father late Wednesday under the state's new safe haven law. And at least 4 children between the ages of 11 and 15 have been abandoned by parents since the law took effect. and it's kind of sad, but it's kind of funny to me because when I was growing up, my dad used to say these terrible things, and he was joking, of course. But my dad used to say things like, I brought you into this world. I can take you out. Or, what you ought to do with a kid is at age 12, you ought to stick him in a barrel and feed him lettuce through a bunghole till he turns 21. And my dad used to say stuff like that, right? And so,
that's amazing.
Yeah, and then when it came to abortion, he'd say, not only do I think women should have the right to abortion, I think parents should have the right to abortion up to age 20. So he'd always say that as a joke, right? But now,
like a 97th trimester abortion, please.
Exactly. Now I'm thinking, how many people are good, that are sick of their kids are going to move to Nebraska now?
Oh,
they can drop their kids. I'm warning you, Susie. You do the dishes, or we're moving to Nebraska.
There are kids in China who don't even have a Nebraska.
Oh, that's just amazing. So I hope somebody does something to fix that law because, dropping off the teenagers to let the state take care of them in Nebraska, that's a little scary. One other point here. Let me get this out of the way for the rest of this segment. On the Russ Belville show, I like to point out that, I like to point out the hypocrisies and the terrible things that are happening in the political world. And this last 8 years, that means slamming on Republicans, right? Because they're the ones doing all the stuff. So, yeah, they're the ones in charge. So naturally, I'm slamming on Republicans a lot. And I get some guff for this. I get people that criticize me a little bit and say, you never point out the bad things Democrats do. You never talk about the bad things Democrats do. So I want to take this opportunity to point out a bad thing a Democrat did, because this flies right into my little hypocrisy radar here, because that's one of the things I just cannot stand is politicians trying to dictate to us, the American people, how we should live our lives, but then they can't live up to that themselves. We get it from the right wing all the time. Rush Limbaugh, 3 divorces, telling us about the sanctity of the marriage, right? Newt Gingrich being Mr. Adultery, talking about Bill Clinton getting a little something on the side, right? Mass hypocrisy on the Republican side. Here's a case of mass hypocrisy on the Democratic side, and I just have to bring this up. This is also in the AP Newswire out of Silver Springs, Maryland. They had a delegate there, a state delegate, like a state representative. I guess they have a delegation, whatever you call it, right? The state elected official in Maryland who was calling for, and this was his brilliant idea, is that the state of Maryland should create a special DUI license plate so that if you're convicted more than once of drunk driving, then you should have to wear this, you should have to have, the scarlet letter on your car. You should have to have this license plate on your car that says DUI convict or whatever, right? That was his big idea. Now he got slammed down. Nobody bought this idea. Turns out, a Montgomery County police report cited this state delegate named Herman Taylor Jr. After finding him sleeping in his SUV at a 7-Eleven, saw him pull into the parking lot, rest his head on the back of the seat, and had to shake him to wake him up. And the officer smelled alcohol. So this state delegate, Herman Taylor Jr., just has been charged with drunken driving. So the guy who wanted to put the DUI license plate on all the DUI offenders has just been charged with DUI himself.
So you can have like the little legend at the bottom, "In God We Trust" or whatever. It says, I forgot what I forgot what I was going to say now. I'm sorry, I'm drunk.
That could be it. Could be it. But yeah, that's the thing, you know, this amazing hypocrisy. And again, I always want to point out to people, when you're watching these politicians talk, when you watch not just politicians, pundits, you know, these leaders of these different family organizations and whatever they are protesting the most against, you know, if they go over the edge and they're really rabid about it, you can almost guarantee it's something they're guilty of themselves.
Let me be clear. I am not gay. I never have been gay.
And that proves my point. This is Radical Russ. It's 45 after the hour. We got one more segment. We're going to answer your listener email that you sent to radicalruss@gmail.com. And that'll be it for the rest of the show. So stay tuned. We got one more segment, and we'll be right back after these messages.
You're tuned to the Russ Belville Show. AM 620 KPOJ and 620KPOJ.com. And 620KPOJ.com.
Continue the conversation with Radical Russ online. Visit radicalruss.com and email radicalruss@gmail.com.
On government. I'm just going to ask you one more time, not to belabor the point, specific examples in his 26 years of pushing for more regulation.
I'll try to find you some and I'll bring them to you.
And I can see Russia from my house.
Welcome back. It's 50 after the hour, and we're just wrapping things up here on the Russ Belville Show and looking forward to Thursday. That's right. This Thursday is supposed to be the vice presidential debate between jumping Joe Biden and Sarah Palin. And who wants to take bets that debate actually happens? Does anybody want to bet me on that? I'm laying about even odds right now. I'd say it's a coin flip whether this actually comes across, because following that performance with Katie Couric, and you know, I got to give kudos to Katie Couric. You know, I've kind of slammed her in the past as being kind of a lightweight, and you know, she wasn't ready for network news after doing Today's Show or whatever. You have earned a new level of respect from me, Katie Couric, for finally, you know, putting some of these questions to Sarah Palin, you know, holding her feet to the fire. And maybe only in a way that a female journalist could do. You're right, because if a male journalist comes strong on some of those topics, we might get accused of sexism or picking on her or something like that. So kudos to Katie Couric for making that stand. The other thing I wanted to mention, too, we were talking earlier about the bailouts and bailing out all these companies and these corporations that made such risky, stupid decisions. You know, I don't want anyone to get the idea that I'm necessarily anti-corporate. I'm a corporation. I mean, I'm the head of Au Gratin Productions Incorporated. The difference is, if Au Gratin Productions Incorporated makes a stupid decision and loses money, Russ Belville has to pay Stevie out of his own pocket, right? Au Gratin Inc. doesn't get any bailout.
That's a relief to hear, actually.
Yeah, I'll bet it is.
Thanks, man.
Au Gratin Inc. does not get any bailout from the government if Russ Belville makes a stupid decision. So let's not say that it's necessarily anti-corporate. It's this corporate fundamentalism, this big money, big ticket, $1 billion bailout stuff that I'm talking about. All right, let's move on here, because we do want to get to your emails.
I don't like spam.
Now,
hello, miss.
You'd like to register a complaint?
I would.
I see. Now, Stevie, when you were back in London this week, did you manage to have any baked beans, spam, eggs, spam, bacon, spam, eggs, spam, ham, and spam?
Ugh. Well, he doesn't have enough spam in it, does he? It would be spam, baked beans, spam, would it?
All right. We get it. Okay, let me get to this first one. This first email came in as a form of a comment on my blog from a fella that I know as my anti-blogger. His name's Adam Graham. He's a conservative blogger in Boise, Idaho, my old hometown. And we've actually met a few times, had dinner a couple times. Very nice fella, very great guy. completely conservative guano loco crazy, but, good guy otherwise. And so I was pointing out about the debates, and I had written a post about how McCain was trying to suspend the debates and how chicken that was, and he should go ahead and debate. And Adam wrote this. Adam wrote, quote, "You're right, Russ. What is McCain thinking? Appearing in a debate is far more important than heading off the next Great Depression. How stupid of him. This was the foreign policy debate, and McCain was going to clean the clock of a teleprompterless Obama. Don't worry, the last debate is scheduled for October 14th. Plenty of time to work out the schedule. And by the way, how dare McCain suggest that he and Obama actually do the jobs they were elected to do, or did Obama resign and I just missed it?" End quote. Well, I love how these little comments work themselves out over the end of the week because, of course, McCain did go to the debate, so apparently that was more important to him than heading off the next Great Depression. He did not clean the clock of Obama, who was without a teleprompter. In fact, it looked like McCain was the guy who needed some help pronouncing things like Ahmadinejad. And as far as doing their jobs, this whole stunt of going back to the Congress, to somehow run in and save and rescue the day,
There's no need to fear. Underdog is here.
Yeah, like somehow McCain's going to run in and rescue the whole situation. Well, first of all, when they had their little meeting with President Bush, the little, come to the principal's office meeting, both Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi, the Democratic leadership, deferred to Barack Obama and let Barack Obama lay out the points of the Democratic plan for the bailout. When it was time for the Republican side, John McCain was silent. John McCain shut his mouth and let Boehner and Blunt and these other guys talk about it. So McCain was useless as a chocolate teapot while he was there trying to supposedly run in and fix the crisis. So completely wrong on every count, Adam, but that's okay. We still like you. All right, let me go to another email. Got this email from Gail, who writes in to say, "Hi, Russ. My husband and I love your show. We couldn't believe this morning you were talking about the Keating Five. Congratulations for having courage. We need more people like you in this country. You are a true patriot." Well, thank you for the compliment, Gail. I appreciate that. But, I don't really think it takes that much courage to talk about the Keating Five scandal. It just takes a little bit of historical relevance, right? We can't look back 20 years to a scandal that most closely matches what's going on in the news today and point out that the guy at the center of that scandal was John Keating Five McCain? Media, listen, you really got to get on this story. A lot of people don't know about it. A lot of younger folks don't know about this Keating Five thing. I'm going to keep hammering on it. Check it out. Go to the Google. Pick up YouTube. Learn about Keating Five. Another email. I got an email for Bill, who says McCain's economic plan basically calls for giving tax breaks for the people who got us into this mess. First bail them out, then cut their taxes. Can't get much better than that. Let the Republicans defend that policy. It's time to tie the pain to his plan. You're absolutely right, Bill, and that's what needs to be hammered out here. I love that little clip of John McCain saying, "We Republicans came to government and government ruined us." So what? Vote Republican? I mean, I think the people have got it figured out here that Republicans can't govern. When you put people in charge of the government who fundamentally believe that, as Ronald Reagan said, government's not the solution, government is the problem. If you put people in charge who believe government cannot function and that government is a problem, an impediment to business, and want nothing more than to get rid of government and get rid of regulation, this is what you get. This is the logical extension of 28 some odd years of Reaganomics. It's simple. And speaking of that, another fellow named Adam, not my anti-blogger, but a different Adam, writes in to say, "Great show. Something I have not heard anyone talk about is the idea that what this country is experiencing are not failed Republican policies, but successful ones. Their goal is, and has been since Reagan, to repeal the progress of the 20th century. Things like workers' rights, civil rights, Social Security, environmental regulations, corporate accountability, the New Deal, the Great Society. These are the enemy because they extend money and power downward. In order to truly do away with these things, the corporate fundamentalist must break the system so they can remake it." This, of course, is what they have in common with the religious fundamentalists. Absolutely right. You've hit the nail on the head for that one, Adam. It is successful Republican policies. This is exactly what they intended. And I don't think the timing is that necessarily a mistake either. Kind of surprising we have this amazing, super stupendous crisis take place right in the October before an election. How could that be? I'm telling you, the Republicans have been playing chess while we've been playing checkers. It's time we got to win this one, folks. With only a few days left before we get to vote these bums out of office. I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us here on the show today. Like I say, 5 hours of show, 2 hours to get it in. We're on this channel every weekend, this same day, same channel for 2 hours, and we enjoy bringing this show to you. Help support us. Visit RadicalRuss.com. Make a donation. We are completely independent. We're always looking for advertisers. Keep independent progressive talk on the air. I'm Radical Russ for Stevie Webb. Thanks for listening, and have yourself a great weekend.
Swan and dance and sing. When you're feeling in the dumps, don't be silly chumps. Just purse your lips and whistle, that's the thing.